We are going to get started today. Today is going to be a brand new class. And this class is so new, I don't even have slides put together yet. However, I have all the content, and I think you're going to find a lot of value from it. We've been doing the same class for over 2.5 years, and we've seen the attendance starting to drop. My marketing manager was telling me that I needed to refresh everything. So what I decided to do was really sit back and think about, over the last couple years, what really has been the driving force of our marketplace when it comes to grants. And that was the genesis of what we built here today. The class is called Public Safety Funding Strategies, and it is about 5 things. And this is going to be geared toward agencies that are in here, businesses, consultants, all roles that play a part in public safety purchases. You're going to have content that's going to be delivered to you. And the content's going to be 5 things. 1, what do you want? As a company, as an agency, as a consultant, as someone that's in sales or in marketing, what do you want when it comes to public safety funding and solutions? 2, why? Why do you want it? We're going to talk about today the why, because the reality is, in life, the drive is always in the why. 3, how can you achieve it? We're going to talk about strategies today. You're going to leave here with grants to target for your agency, as well as, if you're a business, grants for your customers to target. 4, the can and cannot in public safety funding strategies. In essence, what are the rules? What can you do? What can you not do? And then lastly, a call to action. If you've ever been to my class before, you never leave my class without some form of a call to action. So one of the things I'm going to do a little bit differently is I want to leverage the chat, and I want to get feedback from you folks. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do it, because some people don't like to do interaction with the chat. I get it. Some love to do it. So the first thing I want you to do is, in the chat, if you desire, type in, what do you want from today's class? What are you looking for? What brought you here? What made you want to come to the class? Now, in my experience, I've learned a couple things. 1, public safety agencies want one thing, public safety businesses want another thing. Some of it overlaps, some of it does not. So let's take the agency side first. What do public safety agencies usually want when it comes to funding strategies? First, they want to add more value to their community. They want to provide value to give back the community they serve. Doesn't matter if you're fire, police, EMS, emergency management, public health, 911 dispatch, even your coroner's offices. Secondly, they want to have consistent funding solutions to serve the community. Budgets are tight. I'll go into that in a little more detail later. We're always looking to be able to fund projects. In being in this business, I remember talking to agencies. They would give me a list of items they were interested in. I'd price it out. And what I would get back from them is an order of maybe 2 of the 30 things they asked for. And I thought that was interesting, because I didn't understand why they wouldn't be able to buy more than the 2 things, because I was never in public safety before I got in this industry. Before, I was a headhunter. So selling SWAT equipment, which was my first job in this industry, I was confused. Why would you ask for pricing on 30 things but only buy 2? And the answer was the other 28 got cut off the budget. And that's when I learned This is a market where money's going to play a big role. So if we could have consistent funding for customers, we're going to make a much greater impact. So as an end user, you want to know where the money's at. As a business, you want to know where the money's at to guide those customers. Public safety businesses have similar needs, some overlap. One is to add more value to the public safety market. Let's face it, if you're in here and you're a salesperson, or you run a company, or you're a consultant, or you're in marketing, you have to believe in what you're doing. And you have to believe you got the goods, you got the answer, you got the solution. And the better you believe that you have the answer, which should be based off of your features, advantages, and benefits, you're going to want to give back. You're going to want to solve problems. When you're in front of an agency, you're going to want to explain to them and show them and get them to feel, hey, what I have is going to make your life better. Businesses also want more sales leads from their marketing department. It's tough nowadays to get conversations going. And I have a formula I'm going to talk about later. And so if you can get more conversations going because you know where money is for what you offer, then the odds are going to go up that you're going to have a more accurate sales pipeline and ultimately more sales. They all go hand in hand. So I got a lot of feedback. This is awesome. Let me take a read here. So Alex shared what grants to target and how to increase their potential of receiving the grant. You are right where you need to be, Alex. We're going to cover that today. Tom shared to learn more about how smaller agencies that usually don't have funding, how I can help them not feel overwhelmed. Absolutely. We're going to cover that too today. John adds, I'm new to doing grants for small police departments. All the tools in my toolbox is a win. We're going to talk about not just psychology, but mechanics today, John. So you're going to have both. Dale shares, all agencies lean on us to provide guidance and available grant funding strategies. They know what they want, i.e. products and services, but oftentimes do not have the resources available to stay on top of the funding available to them. We're going to talk about places to look consistently and places in their backyard today. And then Abner shares, I want to expand my knowledge of the current opportunities and strategies in order to assist clients with finding, applying for, and receiving grants. All you all are in great spot. And I love the feedback. I love the information you shared. So now let's talk about the second reason. Why do you want this? Why do you want this? Why is an understanding of public funding strategies important? So take a moment and I want you to share your why. Why is it important to understand this? Who's going to benefit from this? How are you going to make a greater impact? I want you to think about those things because those things are the drive. That is the drive. The drive is always in the why. The how we're going to talk about next, that's 20% of what we really do here. Why is 80%. What, why, and how. And I want you to break this down in that simplistic of terms because let's face it, grant funding to some people is the moon. And it's really not. Grants and understanding this game is like next door to your house. It's not this thing out in the universe that you think is so far away from understanding and having success at. It really isn't. So, public safety agencies experience the following problems I've learned in playing this grant game for as long as I have. And this blew my mind when I first got in this industry, but 90 to 98% of all public safety agency budgets go to payroll and gasoline. Remember earlier when I was pricing out 30 items for an agency and they're buying 2 of the 30 and I didn't understand why? Well, as I dove into it, I learned that they only have 2 to 10% of their budget to spend on solutions. So when you only have 2 to 10%, you have to cut things off your wish list. And then you throw on top of it, agency have multiple departments with multiple needs. Administration has needs, IT has needs, patrol has needs, battalions have needs, training has needs, operations has needs, special operations has needs. I can go on and on. They all are competing for that 2 to 10%. And now if you're a business, I want you to think of the next time you're at a trade show in this way. When you're at a trade show, and this was 20 years ago when I first was going to these, I would look at my competitors, specifically the people that sold against me. Like if I sold X and they sold X, they were my competitor. That was who I was worried about. And what I learned years later is that everybody's my competitor. When you're dealing with a market that has 10 to 20%, 2 to 10%, I'm sorry, of budget, everybody's your competitor. So when you're at a trade show, like I was just at FDIC, if you're in the fire market and you were at FDIC, say I was there, put it in the chat. If you weren't, I want to give you an image here. 900 vendors, 30,000 firefighters, massive, massive show. 900 vendors, all competing for that 2 to 10% of that budget. It's tough. It's a tough market to be in. The other reason, or the other problem I see public safety experiencing when they want to buy is elected officials. Now, elected officials are doing the best they can. They're not there to cause problems. They really aren't. They believe they're there to serve the people that voted them in. I don't disagree with that at all. What I've noticed, though, over the last probably 15 years is that they want more and more a say of what a public agency could buy and what they're going to use for whatever reason. Not saying it's right or wrong, just what I see. And so when you figure that in, that now we work in a market where people that have never done the job before are deciding what people that are doing the job can have and not have, it makes it difficult. So the why people come to this class a lot of times is to learn how to work through those situations. Now, if you're a business, you experience the following problems. It's a long sales process. The purchasing or sales process in public safety averages 6 months to 2 years for a project that costs 4 figures or more. We're talking thousands of dollars here, not talking hundreds of thousands. We're not talking millions. 4-figure projects, 6 months to 2 years. Part of the reason is, again, those elected officials are involved in the process. They vote multiple times. The average amount of time an elected official is going to vote on a public safety project is going to vary from 5 to 7. 5 to 7 votes. They don't vote every day. They vote once a month. So that's 5 to 7 months right off the bat. So people come to my class because they want to learn how to shorten that time frame, and I'm going to teach you strategies on how to do that. There are certain grants that are available that avoid that process of voting, and I'm going to teach you that today. Second thing businesses experience is they want to have, and they have this need for more meaningful conversations with the public safety market. And again, at FDIC, talking to companies, I explain to them that, you know, they want to optimize every conversation they have, and you absolutely do. That is extremely important. What I do also explain to them is that the problem you're facing, you're probably not always thinking about, and the problem is this. And I say, let's look at the people walking by your booth, and they'll stare and they'll notice people that would walk by their booth, look at what they offered, sometimes stand in front of the booth and look at what they offer, and then a couple seconds later walk by. And to me, that's the bigger problem, because those are people that are staring at the booth, looking at what's in the booth, and they're saying to themselves, I don't have any money to even start a conversation, but I could use that equipment or that software or that training. That's what you have to think about if you're at a trade show, or if you're marketing through email, or you're setting up your website. It's the people that don't talk to you because they have no money. Those are the ones that you should really focus on as well. And what I've learned is there's a formula. And the formula works like this: end users plus needs minus funding equal less conversations. So if we could take end users plus funding or plus needs plus fundings, that will equal more conversations. And that's our outcome. That's why people come to this class. And then 3, selling to a market that doesn't know when it's going to have funding creates issues, specifically material and supply chain issues. So what do I mean? Take your personal life. And I'll just use an example from my life recently. So recently we decided we were going to buy a new couch. We were going to redo the basement. Our kids now are teenagers. We want to keep them in the house and having fun with their friends, as opposed to going outward and not always knowing who and what they're doing or who they're spending their time with. So we had a budget. We said, okay, we can afford a couch that's going to be this much money. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be for the kids. They're going to demolish it anyways. And so we went looking for furniture. We found a couch and we bought it. It was in our budget. Now, our market's different. This public safety market, way different. And the reason it's different is this. A lot of times you're talking to customers or potential customers. They're looking at what you have. They get sold on what you offer. The benefits solve their problem. And then they have to go find money, because our market works the inverse way that we take care of our own personal life. They have to identify the solution first and then go get the money. So it creates a backlog. So if you're a business, it's easy to get business into your pipeline if you have a quality product. It's difficult to get deals done if your customer doesn't know where they're going to get the money. So we're going to talk about how to solve all that stuff today, which leads to number 3. How can you achieve this? How can you solve the funding problem, either at your agency or how to solve the funding problem for your customers so they can buy more from you? 3 ways: psychology, strategies, and what I call a grant writing mindset. So we're going to first dig into psychology. And one of my hobbies for the last 30 plus years is personal development. I discovered personal development in college. I needed it for a variety of reasons. And it's really been one of the reasons why I've been able to have a business for 16 plus years, is I really worked on my psychology. So what does psychology mean in terms of grants? So there's 7 areas that I want to talk about. And the first is self-motivation. I find in talking to agencies, the biggest issue I see in them is motivation and drive to do grants. And it makes sense. They didn't get into doing grants because they wanted to be a public safety officer. No one ever becomes a cop or a fireman to write grants for a living. It's come with the job. And it's outside their comfort zone more often than not. That personality type that likes to roll up their sleeves and get their hands into a situation and either save people or rescue people or stop bad guys, that's a very physical type of person. Grant writing is not always as much physical as it is mental. It's diving in, it's research, it's things like that. So self-motivation, I find, is the number one thing I do when I work with agencies and helping them write grants, because my business model is businesses hire my company and we work on those businesses' behalves to help their customers maneuver through the grant process. And the self-motivation is the first thing I focus on. Build their belief that this is not the moon, it's next door, and it's possible. The second thing I do is I want them to visualize. I want them to visualize what it's like when they have the money. I want them to visualize what's it like when they have the solution and they're using the solution and the benefits that solution is creating for their community. And the reason I want them to visualize it is because before you can have something in your physical world, you have to see it in your head. So I coach basketball, and my daughter's a basketball player. So when I work with my daughter one-on-one and I'm coaching her on dribbling, I want her to visualize the dribble before she does it. So I want her to push the ball up and down. I want her to dribble with her left hand, with her right hand, between her legs, behind her back. I want her to visualize her doing this and doing it, because before she can bounce the ball once, she has to see it in her head to do it. Same thing with grants. You have to visualize what you're going to get from the process. You have to visualize the success. The third thing you do is you have to have positive self-talk. I know you didn't expect to come into a personal development seminar, but welcome. All seriousness, you have to believe you can do this. And the only way I know that people believe they can do something is when they tell themselves they can do it. If you are a fireman or a police officer, or if you're a salesperson or a marketing person, you have to believe the steps you're taking, the training you're going through, the approach you take to a project or a problem is going to work. And the way you do that is you talk yourself up to doing it. You can do it. You can get this done. You have to believe in yourself. Self-talk helps that. 4, emotional regulation. You have to be mentally tough, because you're going to get told no a lot. So your psychology in going after a grant is this: if you expect that everyone's going to say yes, it's going to fail. You have to be prepared for no's. You're going to get more no's than yeses. If anyone's ever married in this room, I'm sure you've dated a few people before you ended up with your wife. Some people are very fortunate. The first person they meet in grade school or middle school or high school, they end up marrying. I wasn't one of those people. I had to date a lot of people before I found the person that I was the best fit for and was the best fit for me. No's will build up your appreciation for that yes. So you have to be mentally prepared for setbacks and no's if you're going to go pursue a grant. 5 is self-reflection. You have to assess your progress. You have to look at what you're doing and say, is this getting me closer to my goal or farther to my goal? And if it's getting you farther to your goal, you have to ask yourself, what do I need to do differently? So you have to look at what's going on and assess the progress or lack of progress you're making. 6 is social support, and that's support from your team, your agency, your leadership, your community. Build a network of people that will buy into your project. Sell them on the project if you're an agency. If you're a business, sell your customer first and help them sell people around them to build that network. The more chess pieces on the board that want funding for this project increases the chance of the project to get funded. 7, adaptability and flexibility. You have to be prepared to change your approach. You have to be prepared to pivot. You have to be prepared to be flexible and open to change if you're not getting closer to that funding goal. And if you're a business, you have to be flexible and make sure that whatever your customer needs to get funding, they have. If it's specs, if it's pricing, if it's brochures, if it's giving a presentation to a city council or a county board, you have to adapt and be flexible. The psychology part of this game is 80%. The mechanics are 20%. So your psychology has to be right. If it's not right, it's not going to work. Second, strategies. So we're going to talk big picture strategies here now. The number one strategy is having goals and setting goals, and having goal setting be a part of your process. So goal setting, using what they call SMART goals. If you're not familiar with SMART, I recommend you Google it and learn about it. But SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You have to be good at setting goals if you're going to succeed in grants. So if you're an agency, you got to have your goals, or I like to call outcomes. If you're a business, you have to have goals on how you're going to serve these customers in terms of helping them identify funding. We're going to talk about do's and don'ts of what you can and can't do in terms of grants coming up. But I want you to think right now, you got to have goals. You have to have outcomes. You have to have targets. You have to have specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound outcomes. 2, planning and organizing. You have to have a plan. So once you have your goal, you have to have a plan. What do you need to do to achieve this goal? What steps do you need to take to achieve this goal? It has to be well structured. It has to be organized. It has to have tasks, and it has to have timelines to hit those tasks. Planning and organizing this process. 3 is probably what's going on in some of your end users' minds on this call. The agencies that are here today or ones you talk to. When am I going to have time to do all this goal setting and planning? I have a full-time job already. It's not like I sit at a desk and I have nothing to do all day and I can work on getting this money. I have to go out and do things. Totally get it. Totally understand that and appreciate it. It's a unique industry. You're out in the field a lot of times. Time management's key. Prioritizing, managing distractions, allocating time appropriately. Here's the thing. If you're an end user in here, what I teach is 10 to 15 minutes a day. If you could carve out 10 to 15 minutes a day every day and do something to move the chains toward the touchdown of getting the funding. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's writing a couple sentences that will create your justification or your narrative. Maybe it's filling out some of the application. Maybe it's leveraging someone else helping you get some stuff done. Maybe it's talking to a school and giving this grant up as a project to an English department to work on your behalf. Or maybe it's leveraging the husband or wife of a teacher that maybe can help you with this. Time management, though, 10 to 15 minutes a day of either you doing the work or managing the process. If you do that over 3 to 4 weeks, you will have something successful to submit. 4, grant funding identification. Now we're going to get into details, and I'm going to put these grants into the channel here, into this the chat, so you can actually see them. So we're going to talk federal first. So federal grants, these are the 10 grants or areas that I see a lot of activity on right now. So what you can do is you can copy that right out of this chat and take that home with you. So let's talk about them. 1, Assistance of Firefighters Grant Program. Again, just closed, because federal grants, you got to remember, have a window. It's usually 30, 60, 90-day window to apply. One of the things I don't like about federal grants is what do you do the other 9 months? But we'll answer that question in the next area. So AFG is a grant that if you are looking for firefighter safety, equipment, or training, and you're a firehouse or EMS, perfect place to go. COPS grant. Community-oriented policing service. COPS grants are about reducing crime. It's about improving policing efforts. It's about improving public safety as a whole. So if you have a project like that, that's where you want to go. Now, if you're a business, I want you to think of these grants this way, and I probably should have said this a little earlier. How does your product or your service or your software fit into these specific grants? I want you to think like that. And then your homework's going to go to research it. 3, Emergency Management Performance Grant. It's about planning, training, exercises, all about responding to hazards. I see a lot of emergency management grants very similar to the next one, which is the Homeland Security Grant Program. Homeland Security Grant Program is about preventing, protecting, responding, and recovering from events. Terrorist events typically, or other disasters, may they be natural or man-made. Most of you in this room probably fit into the Homeland Security Grant Program. Doesn't matter if you're a big city like UASC or a small town or community like the State Homeland Security Grant Program. There's funding in both those areas for every community in the country. Justice Assistance Grant, or JAG grant. It's about public safety initiatives, crime prevention, technology improvements. So if you're software, JAG grant's a good place for what you do. Transit Security Grant Program. I mean, we just had in New York City, a person got charged with manslaughter for subduing somebody that was causing issues on the train. Not saying right or wrong, just that was the story. Transit Security Grant Program is about solving problems like that, enhancing security measures for transit systems. Then you have the Byrne Criminal Justice Innovation Program. This is about innovation to reduce crime and for better safety in a community. Stop School Violence Grant Program. Had enough school shootings in this country already this year, let alone, God forbid, we have more. This is all about enhancing security or infrastructure, improving threat assessments, intervention programs, things to solve the problem previously or after the fact. Then we have hazard mitigation assistance grants. These are projects to reduce risk and impact of future disasters. Lastly, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, or SAMHSA. This addresses substance abuses like fentanyl or any other types of drugs or alcohol, or mental health issues, which is a major issue we're running in these times. These are 10 federal funding programs I recommend you research. Copy that, what I share with you in the chat, and grab those. Now, the second area is my favorite area, and I spend more time on these grants than anywhere else, and it's private money. What I like about private money, it's ongoing. It's not that window of 30, 60, 90 days. Typically, these are funding sources that are available any day, 365 days a year. Some of them might be quarterly based, but a majority of them you can apply for anytime. They typically come from 5 sources. Community foundations, which raise money within either a city, a county, or a cluster of counties, depending if it's a rural area or urban area. Community foundations will raise money, reinvest money, grow funds, and the IRS requires them to spend 5% of their assets. If you add up all the community foundations funds and assets nationwide, they have over $50 billion in money. The IRS requires them to spend 5% of that. So 5% of 50 billion is $2.5 billion. That's available 365 days a year. By far my favorite. Every community that you either sell to or every community that's in this room right now fits into some community foundation. 2 is manufacturing companies. If you have manufacturing in your community, they have money set aside for projects for public safety. They have workers that they want to keep safe. They have customers that they want to keep safe. They might live in the community, but they work in the community. They have materials on their premises that could be dangerous. They will fund projects for public safety. So if you have manufacturing, it could be petrochemical, oil refineries, resins or plastics, food processing, pharmaceuticals. Any manufacturing has money set aside for projects like this. In addition, they want the write-off. They get a write-off. They get a tax break when they give away money. So you want to have these conversations with those communities. Public-private charities. Those work nationwide. There's many charities that have money set aside for public safety. Public safety foundations. If you have a foundation for your agency, great. Leverage that relationship. They will go out and raise money for you from these manufacturers, from these public and private charities, or other businesses in your community, and they'll either write you a check and give it to you or buy the asset and give you the asset. If you don't have a public safety foundation established, at the end of this presentation, you'll have all my contact information. Let me know and I will get you in touch with people that can help you start one. Service companies. your gas company, your electric company, insurance companies, banks, any company that does business in your community has money set aside for public safety projects, either for a write-off purpose or better supporting their customers or supporting their workers. So everybody can talk to their local gas or electric company, or if you have a railroad that goes through your community, those companies that bring their freight through your community will fund projects to help your public safety agency. So and again, all year round. And here's the other thing. All those federal grants I named, you probably know at least a few of them. Private grants are 1/10 of the work. So let's say available all year round, 1/10 of the work, check could possibly go right to the agency. A lot more upside than federal money. I'm not saying don't apply for federal money, you should, but think about private money too. Last area is state grants. So state grants, let me copy this and put this in the chat. State grants to think about. State grants are unique because one, a lot of that money comes from the feds, but two, they're moving targets. They're in different parts of your state. So the key to understanding state grants is, where do I look? Where do I look to find state funding for my project or for my customer? 7 areas to look at. State Homeland Security Office. Their job is to enhance emergency preparedness, response capabilities, infrastructure. That's a great place to look for public safety money. Next would be your State Emergency Management Agency. They support disaster response, recovery efforts. They're about improving emergency management systems, creating a much more resilient community. So you want to look there. State criminal justice commissions or state criminal justice agencies. They fund equipment, training programs, policing initiatives, crime prevention efforts. 4 state fire marshal offices for equipment upgrades, training for firemen, fire prevention programs, community outreach, anything that's really fire-based, that's a great place to look in your state. 5, State Department of Transportation. This is good for fire and police over the last few years. It's about improving safety, enhancing response, traffic enforcement initiatives. So if you're looking to get more speed signs or radar guns, great. But if you're a fire department looking to get extradition equipment for accidents, that's a great place to go as well. State Health and Human Service Department, emergency medical services, disaster response planning, initiatives for public health, safety programs for your community. Great place to go there. And then lastly, State Department of Education, about school safety improvements, training and response for emergencies, mental health support. All these areas, they're going to have grants available, and it's different in each state. So get familiar with these parts of your state and focus on them. Sign up for alerts, stay on top of these. So now we've talked about actual, what I like to call initiatives or identifying funding sources. Now I want to talk about grant writing and grant writing mindset. So when it comes to grant writing, there's really 7 areas I want you to think about and focus on. Number 1's clarity of purpose. If you're writing a grant, you have to clearly define your goals, your objectives, the purpose of the project, why it's important, and how it's going to address a specific need or problem within the community. It's got to be clear. It's got to be compelling. It has to be visionary, and it has to enhance the application. So think of it, your justification or narrative has to really define what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. Secondly, it's got to be persuasive. You have to sell and sway hearts and minds. You have to be able to have a very strong written and verbal communication of your project. And the reason you want to have verbal communication is you want to have a dialogue with these grantors above and beyond writing and blindly sending in an application and narrative. You want to get on the phone with these people. You want to email these people. You want to have a dialogue. You want the project to not just come from your agency, but come from you, who's representing the agency. It's a big difference. So you have to craft a narrative that highlights the significance of this initiative, the impact it's going to make, and the benefits it's going to give the community. The beauty is, if you're a business, you should be able to explain that and provide that information when needed to those customers, because that's part of your marketing. 3 is research, data analysis. You're going to need numbers. You've got to be able to be good at knowing where to get the numbers and how to put them in a manner that makes sense to the reader. So you're going to maybe have to conduct research. You're going to have to find relevant data or statistics, evidence that demonstrates the need for the project and the overall effectiveness of what the project's going to bring. It has to be well-informed and evidence-based to increase your credibility and enhance the chances of getting that funding. 4 is stakeholder engagement. Engage with stakeholders likely to be impacted or have an interest in this project. Talk to city council, bring them in before the project even gets started so they can be a part of the demo if they're going to vote. Bring in the community, talk it up to leaders in your community, churches, Chamber of Commerce. Explain to them the value add of this project and how it's going to benefit them so they can help you greenlight it if it needs to get voted on. But build those relationships, get endorsements. It's a little bit politics nowadays. I'm not going to lie to you. You have to be good at selling a project. And if you're a business, you have to be good at not only selling the customer, but helping them sell other people too that might never even use it. 5 is grant writing skills. So skills to effectively convey details, goals, and outcomes. You've got to understand the requirements of the application and answer those accordingly. You have to understand, what does the grantor want from you? Is it a certain type of font? Is it a certain type of spacing? Yes, it gets that ridiculous at times. Is it the number of pages? You have to be clear on everything they want and also then deliver a compelling message. So you're going to need things like your project's budget, implementation, how long is it going to take to get this project fully up and running, evaluation strategies of determining, is this adding the value you expect, and how you're going to sustain it. You have to be good at laying out those types of details. 6 is emotional intelligence. Understand and navigate the emotions and motivations of the individuals involved in the process. That's why you want to get to know them. You want them to get to know you, but you need to get to know them as well. Because you got to know, what do they want to hear from you? What do they want to understand when it comes to this project? And how can you best explain it? Got to develop empathy. You have to be an active listener. You got to be good to build rapport. You got to understand, the reviewers need to appreciate and understand where you're coming from. The funders, decision makers, all, you want to have this strong relationship with them. And emotional intelligence is going to help you effectively communicate, address concerns, and build relationships during this entire application process. 7, resilience and persistence. The grant application process is challenging. It's also very competitive. Some of these, you have a 15, 10, 20% chance of success. So you have to have a very resilient and persistent mindset. You have to learn from the setbacks. You have to learn from rejections. You have to get used to the fact that the no's are going to come, but the no's are going to lead to that yes. So use feedback and ask for feedback if you don't get it immediately from these people that do tell you no, and find out, okay, what should I have done differently? How can I communicate this better? What did you not see from me that made you say no? And then solve that with the next application and the next justification paper. So now we're going to go to the fourth part, the cans and cannots of public safety funding strategies. So there's rules to this game. So right now I'm going to explain what an agency can do, what an agency cannot do, and then what can a business do or not do as well when it comes to grants and grant funding and applying for grants. Public safety agencies can call grantors. Remember, I said earlier, you want to call these people, build rapport with them, build a relationship with them. The second thing you could do is hire a grant writer. If you don't have the time and you have the money, hire a writer. There's grant writers all over the country. If you need a list of vetted writers, call me up, email me, I will give you a list. I know writers all over the country I've personally vetted that I know would be worth your time. Purchasing grant lists. I gave you some examples of grants to think about in Target, but here, you can buy grant lists. We have a website coming out for agencies in the next few weeks that will have a list of grants, over 2,400 of them. So grant lists are available. If you have an interest in getting grant information pertaining to your community or the type of industry you're in, contact me. Again, my contact info will be at the end of the class. What you cannot do if you're a public safety agency, you cannot have the supplier of the solution write the grant for you. That is called collusion. So if you're a business on this call thinking, well, I'll just write the grant for them, no, you will get in trouble. I've seen many companies get in a lot of trouble with the federal government for writing grants on behalf of their customers. It's collusion. If you're writing their grant and they get money and then they buy from you, that's a no-no. Plagiarization. You cannot plagiarize the next town over's grant application and justification paper. It has to be your own issues. It has to be your own situation. It has to be your own material. Could it be used as a guide? Yes. We're going to go into that now. Businesses. What can you do to help with the grant application? You can buy grant lists yourselves. You can have a list of grants around your solution that you can hand out. That you can do. That's what we do. We have clients that hire us and say, okay, give us a list of grants that our products fit. We have that. That's one of our things that we do as a business. So if you're interested in purchasing grant lists, let us know. We can talk about it. Supplying templates and outlines. You can supply examples and samples of how your customer needs to write their justification paper. They can't copy it, but they can use it as a guide and inspiration. You can coach and advise that end user how to do this, how to play the grant game. You can give them advice. You can give them tips. You can give them strategies. Hopefully you've taken some strategies from this event and you can share it with them. Redline applications and justifications. Now, you can't change what they write because that's, again, plagiarizing and that's collusion. What you can do, though, is highlight what's written by the customer, open up a comment box, and give them your tips. Just like a lawyer redlines a legal document, you could redline their justification paper and give them advice and tips on either grammar or content. Lastly, support end users grant calls. You can be on the phone with the grantor and your customer. You could be there as a subject matter expert. You can be there to provide additional help and support and guidance when it comes to your product. Now, you can't lead the calls because now that grantor thinks you're trying to sell something, but your customer can call them. You could be on the phone with your customer. What you cannot do as a business, you can't write the grant for them, and you cannot pay a grant writer to write it for them. That's collusion. You'll get in trouble. Your customer will get in trouble as well. And that grantor will get in trouble. Last but not least, call to action. We've talked about many strategies today. I hope you found a lot of value today. If you have, I'd love to hear about it, either in the comment section or email us. But now is the time to act. There's 6 steps you need to do right now after this class. One is make a decision to act. Decide, this is what I want to do. I want to learn this process. I want to help my customers. I want to help my agency. I want to help my community. Whatever motivates you, you got to decide. Then the second thing is get clear on your outcome. What do you want to accomplish? What kind of funding? What kind of projects? How much funding? How many projects? Get clear on that. If you're a company, how much more business do you want to sell in the next 12 months by learning and understanding the grant process? Get your goals in line. 3, know your why. Get clear on why you're doing this. Why are you going to master grants? Why are you going to master grant funding? Why do you want to become a grant strategist? 4, take massive action. Couple things you could do. Start a funding division or a funding team. Master the grant funding game. Have a team that meets every week, every month, and their sole purpose when they meet is to get outstanding at playing the grant funding game. You can do this within your agency. You can do this within your company. Build out or invest in high quality grant info. Build out grant info specific to your city, your county, your region, your state. If you're an agency or if you're a business, build out or invest in high quality grant information specific to your equipment, your software, your training, or your service. Know where the money is for what you need and what you do. Lastly, hire a consultant, a strategist, a coach. I have companies and agencies that consult with me weekly or monthly on how to play this grant game. But find somebody that you have synergy with that understands how to play the grant game so you can learn from them and they can coach and help you through those blind spots you cannot see all the time. 5, notice the results you're getting. You can never manage what you don't measure. Assess your progress. So always look and say to yourself, this is the result. Am I getting closer or farther from what I want to accomplish? Lastly, 6, change your approach. If necessary, based on the assessment, you might have to work on new strategies or beliefs. Remember, this is a psychological game as much as it is a mechanical game. Maybe you've hit a plateau. Maybe you're like, you know what? We're not getting anywhere. That's when you need to ask for help. That's when you need to find somebody that can help you through that process. Again, coach or strategist, someone you have that synergy with. So what I want to do now is open this up to questions. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put every single way you could possibly get a hold of me if you have questions above and beyond here. But what I'd like to do now is talk less, answer questions, and get some ideas from you on how we could best support you today or in the future. So if you like, we have a small group, which is great. Feel free to unmute, ask a question. If you rather put the question in the chat, I'll be happy to answer it. And if you don't have questions, I'm really excited you were here. This is the first time we've done this content. We're going to have it built out in much more structured format with a presentation. I'll have my backdrop going again. But I really wanted to do this today because I wanted to make a greater impact. I felt like we were getting stale in what we were sharing with you folks. And if we're not giving you fresh, good ideas and strategies, then we're not helping. And we're here to help solve the funding problem. So if you don't have questions, I really appreciate your time. Have a great weekend. If you do have questions, unmute, ask, and or you can always email us or call me anytime. But I'm going to stop talking here and open up to questions for the next 7 minutes or so. I could stay longer if there's a lot of questions. What are the recommendations for grant writing classes? I'm guessing there are some are better than others. I am a big fan of the grant classes, and let me grab one. The gentleman's name is Kurt Bradley, and I'm having a senior moment with all right, so Kurt Bradley is a guy I would research for grant writing. I'm going to put him in the chat here. Just want to make sure and then the other one that does a really good job is, where is she? Margaret Stark. For public safety writing, I've taken their class. It's a very good class. It used to be about 2 days. I don't know if it still is, but I took the class and I got a lot out of it. It really taught me a lot about the nuts and bolts. We're going to be putting our own grant writing class together in the coming months. So by coming to this class, you probably signed up for our alerts. We'll let you know when that's coming out, but we're going to be doing a class too. But those two right now have classes. Ours is still in the process of being worked on. What other questions does anyone have? Oh, my pleasure, John. Or how'd you like this class? This is the first time we've done it. What'd you like? What did you not like? What would you like to see a little bit different? What were some areas that you wanted covered that maybe we haven't covered that we can cover now? I'd love to get feedback. Feedback helps me optimize. Yes, Tom.
Hey, Michael, Tom Dull. Work for a company called Flock Safety. What we do is like license plate recognition, cameras, and technology and whatnot. I thought this was helpful for me personally, just like considering stuff outside of what customers are already aware of. Yep. And especially like the private grant idea and, you know, going to their community and whatnot. What I was wondering is, do you have a specific recommendation for companies that don't, or departments, really police departments that don't have a lot of funds allocated directly for technology? Because I feel like a lot of times when we're working with smaller agencies, they don't have LPRs. They don't have, you know, a lot of the fancy tools that, you know, the larger agencies have funding for. And I feel like that's where we fit that niche. So just was wondering your ideas on that.
Yeah, a couple things. One would be, looks like you got a lead here. One thing I would do is this. I would embrace the fact that they have a need for it. I mean, obviously you want them not to have this problem. I mean, we prefer no one had problems, but the reality is people have problems and you have a solution to some of these problems. What I would do is I would look at their community foundation. So, hey, John, what is the city and county you're in? Let's take you as an example, since you're putting yourself out there, asking questions and participating. So what is this? What is the city and county you're in and state you're in? Put that in the chat because we're going to do a little practice here. And what the reason I want to know his city, county, and state, Tom, there we go. Ada, Ohio. Perfect. Hardin County. All right. I'm going to do this and I'm going to share my screen too. But first, let me make sure I got good stuff up here. Put up the old Google machine. All right. So what I would do is I would take Hardin County Community Foundation. Oh, let me do Ohio just in case it pulls multiples. All right, good. All right, so here we go. So this is a community foundation. We're going to double check to make sure it services Ohio. Okay, it does. They're based out of Kenton. And their job is to fund projects to help improve, enhance, or to develop the community. So if you're able, Tom, to show John in this case how the project's going to save time, save money, reduce liability, save lives, and make the community safer and more stable, then the community can also grow. They will fund projects like this. Now, they might have different types of funding sources. They will also raise money for projects they feel are sound, viable, and compelling if they don't have a funding source that fits right now. But this would be, you know, the information about here. I'll put this grant or this in the chat, but that'd be the first place I'd go. The next place I would go would be the, let's see here. Let me close that up. There we go. The next place I would go is I'd look at the local power companies and see if they would fund a project. You just gotta jump on another call.
I gotta jump. John, shoot me your stuff. I'll get you to the right person, man.
And I'll see hopefully you guys at ISCP Tech in 2 weeks. I'll be out there.
Thanks, Michael.
No, appreciate it. All right. Any other questions? I'm happy to stay beyond the top of the hour. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, if you don't have any other questions, again, I appreciate your time. My pleasure, John. I hope you found this beneficial. I hope this was what you were looking for. Again, if you like what we were doing here, share it. Share it with us, share it with others. If there are things you'd like us to cover that we didn't cover, let us know. We'll be happy to modify and optimize the class. But most of all, I really appreciate your time. Stay safe out there. And if there's anything else you need, reach out to us. All our contact info I put earlier in the chat. And we're going to have this online in a couple of weeks on our YouTube channel. So feel free to come and get a refresher anytime you want. Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate your time. And if there's any other questions, reach out anytime. Happy to answer them. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Abner, my pleasure. Have a great day.